Welcome back guys, Jimmy Jules here again with another CREY prop tutorial. We've recently got a heap of new 2.0 props to play with, and today we'll be going over a few of them, and those will be the gates. These are the AND gate, the OR gate, the IF NOT gate, and the exclusive OR gate. As usual, we'll be going through a few of the menu options, and then I'll be taking you through how they work. The way that I think about which gate I'm going to need when I'm building something is to use it in a sentence. So for example, with the AND gate, if I wanted the player to pick up this bottle, and this bottle, and this bottle, and this bottle, see we're using the AND word there, then we would use an AND gate. Now I've got the same setup for each of the gates here, just so you can see under the same circumstances how they react differently. So we've got our 4 pickups here, and these pickups just consist of a sensor prop and a hider prop. The sensor will detect when the player is in the radius to pick up the object, and the hider will disable and hide the bottle, so it looks like it's disappeared. So on our AND gates settings menu, we've got a few options. The first option is the number of ports that the AND gate will have, and this is the number of input ports. So you can see, at the moment this is set to 4, and we have 4 ports to input a signal to. If I was to change this to 5, you can see we'd get an extra port, and we can plug something else into that. The AND gate will activate its true port and send a signal out of here when its condition is met. And the AND gate's condition is that every single one of the input ports have a signal coming into it. So for the AND gate to meet its criteria, we need to activate port 1, and port 2, and port 3, and so on. This is depending on how many ports we have on our AND gate. So for this example, we require our player to pick up the first pickup, and the second pickup, and the third and fourth, before the criteria is met and a signal will be sent out of the true port. So like I said before, in each of our pickups we have a sensor. This sensor has its detected output plugged into one of the ports of the AND gate. So basically what we're saying here is that unless the player has collected all of the pickups, then we won't activate the rest of our props. AND gates are a great way of detecting whether the player has completed multiple objectives before letting them continue. In this circumstance, the objective is to pick up each of the 4 messages in a bottle before the box lights up. It's important that you restrict your AND gate to only the number of inputs required, otherwise your AND gate will never output a true signal. For example, if we have 5 inputs here, and we only plug 4 things into the AND gate, we'll never get a signal out of the true port because this port will never be active, and it requires all of the ports to be active to output a true signal. So just make sure you only have the ports required on your AND gate. Next up, we have the OR gate. This has exactly the same settings menu as the AND gate, where we can choose the number of input ports, and it has a true output for when it's met all its conditions. The OR gate's conditions are that any of the input ports have a signal being sent to it. So again, we've got the exact same setup with the sensor plugging directly into our OR gate. So we've got the same setup here for our OR gate, and you can see that if we pick up this bottle, it immediately activates our OR gate. This is because our OR gate is checking whether any of the inputs are active. So it doesn't matter which bottle the player picks up, it's going to activate our OR gate. Unlike the AND gate, it doesn't matter if you have a few extra ports on your OR gates, because it's only checking whether any of them are active anyway. You don't need any of these extra slots to be filled for the OR gate to still output a true signal. Next up, we have the IF NOT gate. We've got a very simple settings menu here, just with one input and an output, and of course the option to turn on and off the prop with the power button down the bottom. This prop will check whether the input is not active. If the input is not active, it will output a signal of 1. So it's basically just going to output the opposite of what's being input. We've got our same bottle and box set up here, and you can see when I have not collected the bottle, the output is active. But then when I do collect the bottle, it turns it off. So again, it's basically outputting the opposite of whatever's being input. For our final gate, we have the exclusive OR gate, marked with an XOR on the prop itself. You can see here we again have basically the same menu for the AND and the OR gates, with the amount of input ports and the one true output port for when the gate has met all its conditions. The conditions for the exclusive OR gate are that only one of the inputs are active, regardless of how many ports the exclusive OR gate has. So you can see again, we've got our same setup. If we pick up one of these bottles, it's going to activate our exclusive OR gate. However, if we pick up another, it's going to deactivate it, because then we've activated two of the inputs on our exclusive OR gate, and its condition is that only one of them is active. You can see if we pick up the third bottle as well, it still does nothing, because it's checking whether the player has exclusively picked up one bottle or another. You can see it doesn't matter which bottle I pick up, it will still activate, but then as soon as I pick up another one, it's going to deactivate the exclusive OR gate. So if you're thinking during your building process, oh, it would be great if I could get this to happen if the player has not done this, or if they have done this or this. Take a look in your gates, because you'll likely have said one of the gate names in your sentence there, and you should be able to figure out which gate you need to get the result that you're after. So just a quick recap of the gate functionality. We've got the AND gate, which requires all of the ports to be active on the gate before it outputs a true signal. We've got the OR gate, which requires any one of the input ports on the gate to be active before it outputs a signal. We've got the NOT gate, which will output the opposite of what's being input. And we've got the exclusive OR gate, which will check whether only one of the inputs is active on the gate, and it will output a true signal if that is the case. So I've got a bit of a setup here that uses all of the gates together. It's split up into a couple of separate parts, so I'll explain that as I go. You can see we've got the two bottles here, and my conditions for the first objective are that the player has collected either one of the bottles, and then once they've done that, if they've visited the apple tree, it'll unlock another area. So you can see if I visit the apple tree at the moment, nothing happens at all. But if I pick up either one of these bottles, it doesn't matter which one I pick up, or if I pick up both of them, it doesn't matter. You can see an indicator pops up underneath the tree showing there's something over here. So if I go over underneath the tree now, it's going to unlock some stairs for us, and we can jump on top of the spaceship. So if we say this out in a sentence, we can say, if the player has collected this bottle or this bottle, so that's an OR gate, because we're collecting either or of the bottles, and if they've visited the apple tree after that, so we're using an AND gate as well, so we're picking up either of the bottles, which is an OR gate, and then they're visiting the apple tree, which is an AND gate, then it will unlock the next area. And then once we step on top of the spaceship, it activates another camera angle, we go flying up into the air on our spaceship, it then deactivates the camera, and we're able to exit the spaceship onto the next area. So again, if we think about this using our gates, we're checking whether the player is not on top of the spaceship, so we're using a NOT gate here. So I'll take you through a bit of this setup now. You can see just like before, we've got our two pickups with the messages in the bottle, and these are both plugged into an OR gate. So if we picked up either of the messages in the bottle, then we'll be able to proceed to the next step. If you remember, the tree starts flashing with a light once you've collected one of the bottles to indicate there's something over there. Once we've picked up one or the other of the bottles from our OR gate, we've then got this true output going into our exclusive OR gate. This exclusive OR gate will activate its output when only one of the inputs are active. So because we've just activated one of the inputs with our OR gate, it's going to turn on the light underneath the tree. The other condition for this exclusive OR gate is when the player has visited the tree. When the player has visited the tree, it'll activate port 2 as well as port 1, and because it then has more than one of its input ports active, it will disable its output. Basically what that means is that it will start to flash the light when the player has collected one or more of the bottles, and then it will stop flashing the light when the player visits the tree because they've already completed the objective. You can see here that when I collect one of the bottles, the light starts pulsing, and then when I visit the tree, that will stop pulsing because we've completed that objective. So that's two of our gates in this setup already. We've used an OR gate and an exclusive OR gate. The OR gate to detect whether the bottles have been picked up, and the exclusive OR gate to both enable and disable the objective light so the player has some idea of where to go. The next step of the setup is to check whether the player has both collected a bottle and visited the tree. So of course we're going to be using an AND gate for this, And this AND gate has two conditions. One of its conditions is the OR gate that's outputting a signal if we've collected one or the other of the bottles. The next condition that we have is this sensor's detected output, which is the sensor that's underneath our tree. So we're saying if the player has collected a bottle and visited the tree, then we'll activate this true output. Now I've got a few things happening with this true output. So once we've met the conditions for our AND gate, which is to both collect a bottle and visit the tree, we're using a counter to make that signal permanent, and that counter activates one of the ports on our exclusive OR gate. And again, because one of the ports is active, it's going to activate its output, which is going to enable our mover and move the steps upwards so that we can use them. So we've just visited the tree, it activates a port on our exclusive OR gate, and then activates the mover. Visiting the tree also activates a timer set for 2 seconds. When this timer is finished, it activates the other port on our exclusive OR gate, which means that more than one of the ports is active, and it disables its output. So basically what that's doing is enabling the directional mover for 2 seconds. You can see this in action when we visit the tree. The mover gets enabled for 2 seconds, moving the steps upwards so that we can use them. Our final few props are on top of the spaceship itself. We've got a sensor detecting whether the player is actually on top yet. We've then got a timer, a calculator, a NOT gate, and another mover. So these 5 props here are responsible for making the ship move upwards to its position. You can see in this setup we've got a NOT gate. This NOT gate is activated once the player steps on top of the ship by the sensor. The sensor also activates a timer for 5 seconds, and when that timer finishes, it sends a signal to our NOT gate. So initially, when the NOT gate is turned on, it's going to have no signal going into it. Because the NOT gate outputs the opposite of what it's receiving no signal, so it's going to output a signal of 1, which is going to power our directional mover, which moves the ship upwards. The condition for our if NOT gate is when the timer has finished. So after 5 seconds of the mover being active, our timer is going to send a signal to our NOT gate, which is going to disable the power again. This basically means that our ship is going to be moving upwards for 5 seconds, then the mover will be disabled again, and will slow to a stop. You can see this in action when the sensor picks up our player on top of the ship. It's going to turn on our directional mover for 5 seconds, and then after that 5 seconds, it's going to turn it off, and will slow to a stop. We're then able to move from the ship to the next area. Anyway guys, I hope that helps you understand how the gates in CREY work. We've got our AND gate, which requires all of its inputs to be active, the OR gate, which requires any of the inputs to be active, the NOT gate, which will output the opposite of what it's receiving, and the exclusive gate, which needs only one of the inputs to be active, no more, no less. If you've got any questions at all, definitely leave a comment. Hope you're all well, and I'll see you in the next one.